In this video, I'll be going through my optimization process in Google Ads for a healthcare industry business. So to get started, we're obviously going to need to be inside their Google Ads campaign. First thing we're going to do is make sure that we've got the date set to at least 6 weeks back. I'm going to apply that just so we can look at the total performance over the past 6 weeks or so. And to compare that to the last 6 weeks just to see if we're making improvements or if it's dropped off a bit. The big number we're going to want to use for this is the cost per conversion. If this number goes way up when we go back a week or when we go back to the 6 week period prior, this means that we've made good improvements. If this number drops, that means that we've made some errors in our adjustments and we need to go back in and fix those. So as you can see, we made some really good adjustments because the cost per conversion 6 weeks ago was much higher than it is over the past 6 weeks. So that's good to see. It looks like there seems to be a breaking point right around here because as you can see, the impressions kind of level off. This isn't always a telltale sign of something, but typically when you see a trend in the data that there's a clear break, this is definitely something we want to investigate just to see if there's a specific reason why the cost or why the impressions dropped like this. It could be that the cost per conversion went up a lot after this period. We're not quite sure. As you can see, there was a lot less conversions. So right here at this breaking point, before that period, this is about a 2 to 3 week period. There's 2 conversions. Right at this breaking point, we get 2 conversions. And then for that rest of that period going forward, we're looking at 8 conversions. So clearly something good was done right here. So I bet you if we go in and adjust the date to start on March 4th, we will see that the cost per conversion dropped drastically over that period. And drastically may not be the right word, but it did drop by about $20. And so there's probably a trend that started around there and continued to improve as we go along. I believe we're always going to want to look back at our notes inside. Let's see. We are working currently on advanced med spa. So we're going to want to go look at our notes for that business over the past 3 months or so, just so we can see what has been done and what possibly could have caused that change. So that change, let's see, that change happened around March 4th. And around here, this is when we dropped our budget. So interestingly enough, dropping the budget may have helped improve the cost per conversion because that's typically a pretty drastic change, is changing the budget because if we go in, we can see how much we're actually spending on the campaign. Yeah, currently we're spending $12 a day, and so we moved $20 a day over to a different platform, in this case, Facebook ads. So essentially we moved 2/3 of the budget away from Google ads. So it seemed like maybe we were spending too much money on Google ads, and we clearly made the right choice when it comes to switching that money over to Facebook ads. But let's go back and look at the previous 10 weeks. Not 10 weeks, sorry, previous 6 weeks or so. So what we can see here is that pretty much all of our conversions are coming from this search campaign. The smart campaign's not doing a whole lot. The cost per conversion is kind of high. Our cost per click is obviously super low. That's typically why we use a smart campaign. We don't delegate more than 20-25% of the entire budget to a smart campaign. Typically, you're delegating more of the budget if they have a smaller budget. And this is just to help get traction to their website, helps improve their overall website performance because these super cheap clicks are obviously going to go into Google's algorithm and you're going to be able to see, hey, this website is clearly important because it has more people visiting the site. So that's always something we like to do for really low budgets is throw a little bit of it into the smart campaign, even if it's not getting tons of conversions, which clearly this is not a high converting campaign. It's at least getting a lot of clicks to it. Let's see. Right now we can see decent conversion rate over here, decent interaction rate, which in this case is just a click-through rate, but nothing really actionable from this data. We could move some of the money over into MedSpa search, but if you really realistically, it's not going to do a whole lot. Maybe add a couple extra conversions a month, but really that's not a huge deal because it's only $3 a day. So it's probably best just leaving it there and allowing it to do its thing and just get a bunch of clicks to the site. We're going to next go to ad groups, see if there's any changes we can make based on that. Okay, so right now it seems like it's breaking up the ad spend pretty well. We do have too many ad groups for how low of a budget they have. We may want to think about pausing one or two of them to focus on the really high performing ones. We probably want to pause the hormone replacement. Let's go back and look for the past. Let's add another 4 weeks of data just so we can see if there's any improvement over that course of that period of time. But as you can see, hormone replacement just hasn't done anything for the past 10 weeks. And I bet you if we go back even farther, it's really not going to have improved. Let's see. Yeah, as we can see here, money's just been kind of dumped into hormone replacement. The interaction rate's not terrible, but we obviously have 0 conversions from this. So it's probably worth just pausing because we'd rather that money be spent on optimizing for one of these other actually converting ad groups. So we're just going to go ahead and pause that at the moment. The only reason you wouldn't pause an ad group like this is if they specifically want money going into this, which is why we had this ad group in the first place. But with how low of a budget they have, it's probably beneficial to just go ahead and pause it and allow the other ad groups to make up for this change. And if we go into ads, I believe we're going to see the exact same thing. Yeah, as you can see here, we just paused that ad group so that other ad disappeared. But since we only have one ad per ad group, we're going to obviously see the same data. Next up, we're going to want to go to assets. I'm going to check the call asset just to make sure that there is an ad schedule on it, because if there's not an ad schedule, obviously it needs to be applied, and so there's not an ad schedule. So this means we need to go and check their Google My Business page and see what times they are open, because obviously you don't want people calling outside of business hours. So go to my business page, Advanced Med Spa. We'll just view one of them. They're probably going to have the exact same hours. From here, we can scroll down. We can see they are open from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. So that's the exact change we're going to make, Monday through Friday. 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Go ahead and save that, and that should help optimize the ad spend a little bit more, because as you can see, they are getting a pretty decent amount of clicks, a pretty cheap clicks to their call asset, but we don't want those clicks coming after their business is closed. Let's see. Since we haven't done that, we probably haven't done a pinning headlines adjustment just yet. So let's go in and see if we've pinned headlines just yet. Okay, so we have pinned headlines, so we're good there. So the ads are optimizing more efficiently, so we don't have to worry about that. We're going to want to go in and look at ad schedule just to check to make sure we've done the changes. Before we go in and even try to find the beneficial times, we're going to go in and check if we've implemented any ad schedule. So clearly we've implemented an ad schedule, and as you can see, it just recently was implemented, so we actually don't need to make any ad schedule changes at the moment. But it's always good to check to make sure those have been made, just because if you accidentally missed it on your last Google Ads check, you always want to make sure that everything has been done to optimize your campaign. So we're going to go back and look at all the adjustments that have been made in the past 6 weeks or so. So really we're going back at max, we're going to go back to the 14th of March, considering it's the 10th of May right now, so that's almost 2 months. Those are going to be the most applicable changes that have been made. So as we can see here, we already had the ad schedule change. This is why you always keep notes so you don't go in and are constantly checking things that have already been fixed. That's something that obviously I overlooked, and it just wastes time. So make sure you keep track of adjustments that you've made, major adjustments that you've made, so that way you don't constantly think, oh, have I done this yet or not? Let's see. We also did a CPC adjustment on location, so we don't have to worry about that either. It's a med spa, so it's in the healthcare industry, which means Google won't track data for healthcare industries most of the time. But in this case, it looks like we actually have some data to work with. That typically doesn't happen, but if we're given data to work with, we might as well use it. So as you can see here, it's mostly going to females. We're going to want to see if specifically any gender is giving us a lower cost per conversion. So as you can see here, male, we're not getting great interaction rates with males either. I mean, this is a really low amount of clicks. You can't really make any, that's not statistically relevant. This one right here is statistically relevant, and you can see it's a little bit lower than the female interaction rate. In this case, interaction rate is the click-through rate. And with how low of a budget they have, we may just want to go in, and we can see here that the unknown, it seems like weight loss has the highest click-through rate out of all of these. So weight loss may be something that we clearly need to go after higher. Maybe put some more money towards it. Let's go back and look at ad groups. So let's see, interaction rate. Yeah, weight loss is getting a higher interaction rate, and it has a higher, on average, conversion rate. Skin and facial seems to be taking a lot of the money, but weight loss is actually doing pretty well. Unfortunately, they just don't have a ton of data because their budget is so low, but if, say, these numbers were to be multiplied by 5 or whatever, and we could say, okay, this is clearly statistically relevant, we would actually want to try to separate weight loss into its own campaign and then give it more money that way. In this case, what we can actually do is we can actually adjust by audience, by ad group, if we wanted to. So if we go here, we go to audiences, we'll go to gender just to make it easier because there's less categories. But as you can see here, we can put in bid adjustments by ad group for each of these categories, for either male or female. Typically we like to leave unknown left alone just because we don't know who it's being advertised to, and so we just don't have enough data to be like, oh, the unknown people are converting less. It could just be a random one-off situation. In this case, it does look like the conversion rate for unknown is pretty low. It may be that, as you can see here, the majority of the clicks are coming from females, and with how low their budget is, it may be worth just pausing everything but females and just going after females because the budget is so low. So we're not worried. The only reason we wouldn't do that is if we were worried that all the ad spend wouldn't be getting spent, but we only have $9 a day, so it might be worth pursuing. We're going to look at data a little bit closer to the present time because you don't want to go back too far and make these adjustments because we've made adjustments all throughout here, and so that could be causing a skew in the data, whereas if we just go 6 to 8 weeks back, we'll actually see relevant data for making adjustments with. And as we can see here, let's see. Yep, on these we're getting lower interaction rates. Clearly 2 clicks, we can't do anything. That's not enough data for us to make any assessment. But what we can see over here is that, frankly, we're going to be getting, our main target audience seems to be women. Not a lot is happening outside of that. So in this case, we're just going to go ahead and pause all of these, and we're just going to focus on going after females because our budget's so low. So we want to try to make the ads as specific as possible, so that way Google doesn't have to try to optimize for dudes, girls, and unknown. It can just be like, okay, we're just going after females, and then Google can go from there and make the best bidding possible. And so this is obviously something we're going to want to track inside ClickUp, that we've made this adjustment. That way, if we know, if say a month from now we see, oh, the cost per conversion actually went back up, we know, and we see that cost per conversion increase trend started around today, we'll know that this is one of the changes that probably needs to be undone. But this is always something that this is most likely going to work, but you always want to track it, just because sometimes things don't work out when you make adjustments. It's not a perfect science, especially when you have such a low budget and there's less data to work with. You just kind of got to make the best judgment possible. So we're going to go in, we're going to, let's see, exclude from ad group. And we can always come back in and re-include them, but at the moment we are excluding them. So we can do this for everything. We can do this for age as well. So we're going to come in and look. To get more data, we're going to look 3 or 4 months back, and then we're going to confirm our judgment with more recent data, just to make sure we're making the right choice. Okay, so skin and facial seems to be getting most of the conversions. As you can see, there's a lot more data to deal with. We might not want to make this adjustment just yet, because we just made such a major adjustment in gender. We probably want to wait for the gender one to play out for 2 weeks or so as we collect data on that, and then come in and make the adjustment based on age. That way, if something goes wrong at any period, we know where the problem started, as opposed to if we made both adjustments today and a month from now all hell broke loose and the cost per conversion jumped up. We wouldn't know if it was both of them that caused that. If it was just one section, we'd have to go back and undo both of them. Whereas if we just make one adjustment, we can filter out what was causing that problem. And we can also go to household income and look at that as well. It seems like there's a good amount of data on that. Seems like it's being distributed pretty evenly. I mean, the lower 50% and the top 20% are both contributing, so there's not a lot to go on based on that. Obviously, once we have a lot more data, if the budget was higher, we would be able to use the bid adjustment calculator that we've created, but we really just don't have the data in order to do that. So we're going to go ahead and be done with audiences, just because with the lack of data, it's hard to make all these major adjustments without some levels of uncertainty. So the next thing we're going to go is we're going to check locations, just to make sure that these are all trying to converge towards the same cost per conversion, because that's always the goal, is when making these bid adjustments, is for them all to kind of converge on the same number. And so they should all be trying to converge to 51. We're going to see more recent data from after we actually made those adjustments, because if we go back to our notes, we see that we made an adjustment around April 13th. And it seems like that was probably one of the causes of like decreasing our cost per conversion, because as you saw before, our cost per conversion was around like $50, and now it's around 30 in the location section. And you can see that a lot of these are a lot lower than 50, especially the ones we actually adjusted for. And this plus 78 was a huge one to drop. As you can see, not a ton of conversions. Once again, going back to that data, we don't have a lot of data to go on to make a ton of adjustments. We just kind of have to make our best educated guess. And so one thing I always like to do if I'm starting to get lost in what I should be doing for making optimizations, is I always go back to our Creekside knowledge base, and we're going to go in and look at our optimization SOP. And so here we can go through like the campaign management best practices. Obviously, we haven't reviewed keywords yet, so that's something we need to go and do. We've already reviewed ad schedules, Google recommendations. We pretty much ignore those most of the time. So no need to worry about that. That may be something you check in once a month. Smart campaigns, we need to go into the smart campaign and check the keywords in that as well. Right now, it seems like keywords is the only thing we've missed in terms of what we need to do. Right now, we're not using the display expansion feature because they have such a low budget. We don't want to be splitting it up amongst a bunch of things. Through the location report, ad fatigue isn't something we're worried about at the moment because our campaigns are improving. If it started to seem like our ads were starting to increase in cost per conversion again, we'd probably want to change out some of the headlines. We just reviewed audiences, and then we talked about why we can't really use the bid adjustment at the moment. Just not enough data. So we're going to go back in. We're going to go look at the keywords. So search keywords. And typically you want to do this by ad group if it has enough data by ad group. As we can see here, let's just check the top performing ones by clicks because we don't really have a lot of conversions to go based on. We can see right here, this one's a pretty low click-through rate. We want to try to get rid of low click-through rate keywords, especially for campaigns that are optimizing for conversions but don't have a lot of budget to get a ton of conversions. We want to just try to maximize for the keywords that are actually getting clicked through the most. So the ones that our ads are most relevant to are going to have higher click-through rates. So as you can see here, these are more relevant, but some of the budget's being taken up by some of these lower performing keywords. So we probably want to pause these and allow some of that budget to be spent on some of these keywords that just haven't gotten a ton of impressions because some of these other ones are getting a lot of impressions. They're just not getting clicked through a ton. And so we don't, after around anything less than 5 clicks, that's just not enough data for us to make any adjustments. That's why we want to make adjustments on stuff that's gotten 10 plus clicks. And so we can see here that clearly this is statistically relevant. It's gotten over 100 impressions, so we know that these probably aren't the best keywords that we should be bidding on. We should allow Google to try to optimize for some of these keywords, get them more impressions, get more data. And we can go back a little bit farther on this just to make sure we're confirming our judgment. And we need to go in and make sure we're looking at both enabled and pause, because once you pause a keyword, it disappears from here. And as you can see here, we made the correct adjustment right here. This still seems to have a low click-through rate. When we go back a bit, it seems like this one actually has a decent click-through rate, but as you can see here, it only has one conversion. And whereas some of these other ones, and it's spending a ton of money for all these clicks. So we actually did make the right, even though the click-through rate doesn't say that we should pause it, the amount of money we're spending for one conversion probably isn't super valuable. And we're getting a ton of impressions that could be used on some of these better performing keywords. Let's see. And I think those are really the only two we need to worry about pausing. Or obviously we're going to go up and review our search terms as well, make sure we're not showing up for any bullshit. And clearly we're trying to show up for med spa and anything related to those keywords we were just looking at. And this is one of those things, like, clearly I'm not an expert when it comes to the med spa industry, but you do just want to look for things that clearly don't match up with what we're advertising for. Most of this does line up. If we don't know what it is, we definitely want to copy and paste it into Google just to look it up. We need to be doing this by impressions, actually. Impressions is more important to look at than clicks, because you'll be able to see some of these higher impression keywords with 0 clicks, as opposed to if we went by clicks, we would never see that these are bad performing search terms. So that's why you always do it by impressions. Because a lot of the times it doesn't show that it got a conversion. Google's tracking when it comes to conversions with search terms is a little bit off. That's why we like, when we're reviewing bad search terms, we do it by clicks or by impressions. And right now we don't have much click data, so we do it by impressions. Let's see. Dermani Med Spa. This one clearly seems to be one that's not catching anybody's attention. So we might want to, it seems like we added this as a keyword. We might want to go back and look to see if that's a keyword we can just go ahead and pause. Yep, see, low quality score. This is one of the only ones that we have a low quality score for on this entire account. And as you can see here, we wouldn't have really seen it when we were reviewing our click data, but you can see it's got a lot of impressions for how far down the chart it is. So we clearly want to pause this. This is not helping us. And a lot of the times, low quality score, you can have campaigns with every keyword says low quality score, but the campaign can still be doing really well. But in this case, pretty much everything has a high quality score, so that's a red flag for a keyword. The reason I said that is because when I went down, I saw that we had 2,000 plus keywords, but it was because we were looking at pause keywords as well. But now we're only worried about 30. And with how low of a budget, that's probably around the maximum amount of keywords we actually want to have. And really what I'm doing is I'm trying to see some of these outliers where it's like, oh, why is it getting that many impressions and 0 clicks? And so right now, we've paused some of the higher impression keywords. We're actually going to pause these as well just because we're trying to optimize as quickly as possible for how low of a budget. And so there's just no point in wasting time trying to see if these get 100 impressions, are they going to start getting more clicks? We've got other keywords we'd rather try out. We're going to leave this one. Basically, once it got over 20, we're like, okay, screw it. We don't want those keywords in there anymore. Let's go back to search terms real quick to see if we can find any other things that are clearly doing poorly. This is another one where it's like, this one just really doesn't apply that much because it's a med spa. It's not a massage parlor. So we're probably going to want to add this as a negative keyword because I bet you if we look down, massage is going to show up a little bit more. Or if it, see another massage one, we just really want to get rid of the massage keyword because it doesn't apply to what they do. Mainly when people are looking at massages, they're looking at just spas, and they're a med spa. They do more medical procedures than they do just massages. So we're going to turn this into just a broad keyword or broad negative keyword for the entire campaign because we don't want to be showing up from when anybody's looking up just a massage. So we're going to save that to the campaign, and hopefully that will allow us to optimize a little bit better. I think that should wrap it up when it comes to conversions or optimizations we're going to make this week on this search campaign. We're going to go into the Smart campaign and just check through their search terms real quick. Let's see. Right here, and we're just going to go in and make sure that we're getting rid of anything that could have popped up since our last optimization. So we don't want to go back super far with this one because we could be going through thousands of keywords. And as you can see here, we're probably going to have a lot. Yeah, as you can see, we could be going through this for a while. Yeah, see just a bunch of stuff that just doesn't apply. We're only wanting to show up for English words at the moment. No need to waste on other languages because budget's super low, even if they are searching up what they're advertising. So we're just obviously going to pause different languages. And in Smart campaigns, you can only add them as negative keywords. You can't really pause them per se. We're just going to go through and uncheck vitamin IV. It could kind of apply to med spas. We're really only going to put negative keywords for things we know for sure don't line up. So I have no idea what this is, but it didn't get any clicks, hasn't spent any money. This just means that it got an impression. If it shows up on here, it means it got at least one impression. And going through this and marking them all as negative keywords just allows Google to only put your ads in front of people that actually care about your services. Tattoo removal, that doesn't apply. It's hard to put spas near me as negative keywords because they're a med spa. And so if you put negative keyword for spas near me and then somebody searches up med spa near me, it could overlap and cancel that out. So we're going to leave all the spas in. Unfortunately, that's probably why it's getting such low conversions for how many clicks it's getting, because a lot of people are just looking up spas and so they're popping up for spas and instead of and people are looking for massages and stuff like that they don't actually offer. But it does get a bunch of clicks to their site for people who are kind of in that looking for services in their industry. Like they're looking for wellness services. So it's okay because we're spending so little money on this campaign. Like they don't do that. They don't have those. I don't believe they have these, but it kind of lines up with like health and wellness. But we're going to go ahead and mark them off anyways because we don't want to be spending money on them. Okay, now that we see that we're actually showing up for med spas as well, we actually can come up and click off all these spas, and hopefully it will only stop showing for spas, but it'll still show up for med spas. So if we come back in next week and we see that, oh, the smart campaign is just not even getting clicks, then we need to go in and remove these from the negative keywords. Different language, don't want to show up for that. This is all stuff they do. Not sure what Kybella injections are, but they're looking up injections for health. Could overlap with services that they offer. And yeah, frankly, we're just going to keep going through this. There's no reason for you to watch me go through all of it. So we're going to go ahead and pause the video here. But yeah, this is a brief overview of 1 week worth of optimization for a healthcare industry business with a low budget.